Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this a little bit cooler, not as beautiful outside, but still, when you're in Stony Plain, it's always better in Stony Plain. Thank you for joining us for today's Committee of the Whole meeting, or no, sorry, Governance and Priorities meeting, and it is May 6th. Members of Council, there is agenda before you. Administration, is there anything to add to the agenda?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay, I'll call the question. Deputy Mayor, for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, that the May 6, 2024 Governance and Priorities Committee meetings agenda be accepted as amended.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where is it amended?
You didn't amend anything. We had this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your Worship, sorry, it's just an error on the slide deck. It's just adopted as presented.
Okay. Did the Deputy Mayor say amended?
I did.
Okay, read it again, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, that the May 6, 2024 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be accepted.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, and before we continue on with the agenda, this is, like I mentioned earlier, a Governance and Priorities meetings. And through the last couple of years, I've been given the opportunity for the Deputy Mayor the opportunity to chair the meetings to gain experience and allows me to mentor them as well. This gives an opportunity for our community to develop more leadership, and then hopefully that carries on to the rest of the community. So at this point in time, I'd like to relinquish the chair to Deputy Mayor Plechko.
Thank you, Mayor Choi. This is the time that we allow members of the public to speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda. Administration, has anyone registered to speak?
Through the Deputy Mayor, no one has registered.
Thank you. Is there anyone in council chambers that would like to speak to council about anything that is not on the current agenda? Seeing no one, will proceed. This evening we have presentations and delegations. First one is this evening we have two presentations. First on the agenda is a presentation from some of our Public Works town staff. Welcome, and please come forward for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As the staff members make their way forward, I just want to say a few words. An idea was brought forward to potentially have a little library, as they're located outside and around the community. I have one down here at the town office, and when the idea was brought forward, I knew we had a number of operations staff that would be both creative in their approach, but also very skilled in their approach. And I think just like even about 3 minutes ago, they were still debating who was the spokesperson of the group. So I'll just allow them to do their thing, Your Worship. They're going to come talk to you a little bit about, or sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, a little bit about the process for and unveil the little library we're going to have down here at the town office.
Thank you, Town Manager. If I can get whoever is going to do the presentation to print your name on and sign on the sheet in front of you, push the button on the base of the microphone and speak directly into the microphone. Cool.
The debate is still happening as to who's the
Who's
official
talking?
speaker, right?
And whichever town staff is the lucky one that gets to do the talking can introduce each of them that are here tonight. Perfect.
Tom asked us to build a mini library, so we got told to figure it out, so we did. Everything you see here is reused from somewhere in town. The roof was made out of the dance floor HB3 building after the damage. The door, the little bridge, are made out of the old wagon that was at HB3. Heiko donated the clock representing the tower. Other side, that's the old emblem that we had still from the town. The back and the bottom are just a piano that we had in Rotary Park from downtown. The only thing we had to buy was hinges, the casters, and a bit of glue. And then on the inside, the shelving comes out of, what's it called again? The original. And the cabinet comes out of, town office here. So. Your old lunchroom. Oh, I say, yeah.
Well, that's amazing what you've done and used a little bit of the history from our town to build it. So kudos to each and every one that has participated in it. It's nice to see the old town chairs remodeled a little bit. Maybe we might have one or two around that you could have in the office too. That looks really awesome. I think you guys have done an awesome job. Inside, I noticed when you had the door open, there's a plaque. What is on the plaque?
On the inside here, it says our names that built by town of Stony Plain, town of Stony Plain Projects Group, and then the date 2024, and our names under it from materials recycled from just around the town. What it says.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I can add that I thought it was important that the staff that contributed directly were recognized. The table in front of us was built, I'm not sure how long ago, but I know there's some names of the individuals that crafted that table for future generations for the town to utilize it. And I just thought it was important. Again, they were a little hesitant to do that. I think we actually might have required to have that put on, from what I understand. But I think it's something that can certainly will be a legacy for the people in the room, but certainly the people that constructed it as well. So.
Thank you, Town Manager. I'll open it this time for anyone on council that would like to ask questions. Councillor Meyer? No, sir. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to say how beautiful it is, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it. I'm glad Tom delegated so nicely and gave you guys all free range. So I just wanted to say how much it is appreciated and beautiful, and I can't wait to see people use it.
Me too.
Councillor Hansard?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm amazed. First of all, the community loves little libraries, and most communities do. It's hard to go anywhere that you don't see at least one or two, even at Wabamun and Spring Lake and outlying communities. The fact that you guys creatively dreamed up using these materials from other things that have meant something in the town of Stony Plain speaks volumes about your respect for things of the past and making it new for the future. So thank you very much. It's a wonderful thing that you've done, and I know that you guys are very gracious about where this came from, but the spark of an idea put in the hands of willing people and creative minds can make something wonderful happen, and I think you've done that here.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Those of you that aren't aware, I teach 6th grade, and so when I saw the tarp sort of over there and kind of had it half wrapped up, like you can only imagine where my head is going in terms of what we were going to see this evening, and kind of wheeled it in. I'm going, is that a space shuttle of some sort? And couldn't quite figure it out. But the craftsmanship is beautiful. And I think one of the pieces that stands out for me is certainly bridges our history with our present, right? We have materials from throughout Stony Plains history, but certainly recognizing the partnership with Shikawi as well, and certainly an ongoing partnership that exists. So kudos for a job well done. Really appreciate your time and energy and investment for a beautiful piece. Thank you.
Councillor Lowry?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, an absolute huge thank you to you gentlemen and the rest of the staff that were involved in this. You know, when you think about the little library and you think of what's contained, well, it's contained books, and books contain stories. And this really tells a lot of a story about Stony Plain. You know, what really stood out to me was the nods to Shikawi. So on the one side, the roof of it and those kind of nods, you know, it talks a lot. It talks about our heritage and our history and just the symbolism of that little library and the community that it creates. And so within the town office here and the staff who are obviously going to get to enjoy it, but also the fact that it's going to be in our public lobby so that, again, the community themselves can also come in and enjoy it and see that work. You know, I know Tom and I had talked about this a little while, and, you know, I think originally we talked, there was the one at the Tri-Leisure Center. It's just a bookshelf on wheels. Right? It's great. It functions and it's awesome and it's great to have that. But I mean, what you've done is you took it so far beyond that. And I think that's just incredibly special. And I think it just goes to show exactly what Stony Plain's all about is, you know what? Yep, we could be just like everybody else. We could be plain, we could be normal, we can still contribute. But to take it that extra step and to do what you've done here and to have that passion behind it, I can't say enough. That's incredible. Thank you guys so much for that. And I can't wait to see how that's going to affect the community around here and the positivity that it's going to bring to everybody at the town. So thank you.
Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. And that is just absolutely beautiful. My question is, how many can you build?
How many?
Yes.
How many do you need?
I think I'll answer that with the same comments that the town manager did, is like build as many as you can with the resources that we do have. I think this is a great asset for a community. And I think it's just lost on us that it was just being in the town of Stony Plain public office. I think through the different evolutions of our cultural master plan and tourism, all that stuff, you mentioned something about the painted pianos, something that drew people to the community. Like having a few of those throughout the community, maybe one here and then we move up throughout the community, like one at HP3, maybe one at Rotary Park, just places where we don't tend to see them, and then just have them move around. Hopefully the residents are able to buy into that so that we don't get damaged or graffitied. But the thing is to build community and to, like as mentioned by members of council, is to pay homage to our heritage. I think if we lose that fact of where we're from and what ties us together as a community, then we're going to start to fall apart and not become that large community with a small town feel. So, and I know that there's also lots of books over at the Stony Plain Public Library, so those can be filled all the time. So my question is, like, seriously, is how many can we build?
I don't know. Depends on how much we have.
Exactly.
Material.
Your worship, you know, I mean, again, at this point in time, we were just going on the one. We can, you know, give some thought to, I mean, our other public facilities directly. That would be something we can talk about and see what we can do about that. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Town Manager. I think always the good thing that the mayor has, and I get to have it this evening, is I get to speak first and I get to speak last. So one of the things I think that is, oh, so we have another councilor that decides he wants to talk. Councilor Myers, go ahead.
Well, I was just waiting until you started getting going, and then, actually, I'll be very brief. I know some of my fellow councilors have expressed amazement, and I don't think that's inappropriate or anything like that, but I certainly see your guys' work in our community out there, and I know you guys do a good job, and so the craftsmanship and the quality is just consistent with what you guys do in our community, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So as I said, I get to have the last speak. So I think one of the things that speaks too loudly is the sharing of knowledge within our community. It speaks to the library and how that works within our community. And this is just one more step that shows the need for sharing of books within the community for the betterment of the community. So I really appreciate all that you've done, and the job is absolutely phenomenal. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to bring this up front here, and the three of you come, and if I could get council behind me, we'll get a picture for a presentation for them. So thank you again this evening for coming, and it's nice to see our staff be able to do things that better the community and our local work environment. So thank you. Yeah. Right? Welcome back. Sorry for that. Where it was supposed to be a short picture, but I learned something while we were doing it. We have our director from the library here this evening as well, and she has brought books. So if she'd like to make that quick presentation to the group of town employees that have put it together right here at the front, we'll just get a small quick picture, and we'll get some of the first books within. Okay. Do you want me putting them in the library? Sure.
What are the names of the books? Were they specially selected? You're not sentimental. Well, no, but I mean, like, you got like, what is that? One on painting. One was like across the fifth, or west of the fifth, or whatever.
It's always a wonderful thing when we have participation from other organizations within our community that bring things to the town that we're doing on our own initiatives. So we really appreciate the library, and thank you, Lena, for bringing that down this evening. We appreciate that. Thank you. You guys have a great evening. You can take it away, yes. The next presentation this evening is from the Tri-Region Men's Shed. Welcome, and please come forward with your presentation. I'll ask you to print your name and sign on the sheet in front of you. Push the button on the base of the microphone and speak directly into the microphone. If you could introduce yourself to council as well, please.
Okay, my name's Doug Taylor, and I'm here representing a newly established organization in our region called the Men's Shed. And the organization is called the Tri-Region Men's Shed Society. And just a quick overview, what's a men's shed? I'll read from our materials. In summary, a shed is a relaxed and inclusive place to learn new skills and pick up all old hobbies. It's a place to share stories and form friendships, a place to do that thing that you've always wanted to do or to do nothing at all. Forget itineraries and agendas. A men's shed is whatever its members want it to be. In the men's shed movement around the world, it's driven by a concern for loneliness, isolation, and health concerns in aging men. Men over 60 years old have the highest rate of suicide in our population. Mental and physical health well-being is an important aspect of our existence. The world of the men's shed, it got started in Australia 20 years ago with a partnership with the Australia Health Service and the community of older age men. It's spread throughout the Commonwealth. It's very strong in the United Kingdom and in Ireland. There's over 3,000 of these men's sheds in the world. And if you've ever followed British TV shows, people will talk about the shed at the back of the garden. And this is where the shed idea comes from, is a place to get out of the house and go and hang out with your buds. Community gardens are another kind of example of that kind of communal activity. It's very active, as I say, in the UK. There's probably over 1,000 in the UK, and that's Scotland and England and Wales. I think there's over 400 sheds in the city of the main city in Ireland. The first shed was led in Manitoba by Doug Mackey, a retired social worker, and this is very kind of common language, whose daughter prodded him to get more active. So it was, Dad, you need to get out of the house and stop watching TV all the time. In Canada, there is a national organization of Men's Shed Canada with growing kind of numbers, sprinkling in PEI, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and British Columbia. British Columbia is very active with over 40 sheds, as I understand it. And in Alberta, there are approximately a dozen sheds have gotten started in the last 4 or 5 years. COVID knocked a number of them off, but they're coming back. And in terms of the Alberta or the Tri-Region one, there is just to show you the demographics for us. There are 28 people in our shed from Spruce Grove. There are 12 people from Stony Plain, and there are 3 from the County of Parkland. And part of our interest in coming to you is just to tell the story and try to get more people to consider showing up. In terms of our mission of the shed, let me do a quick overview. Provide older age men with a safe and supported social environment to manage, sustain, and improve their physical and mental well-being and self-actualization. Provide space and resources to gather, socialize, and be creative. Better our community by responding to projects, requests that the group chooses to take on. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. Skill sharing between members and community members, and assist in keeping men independent, active, and supported. In the last 2 years, we have started from zero and developed a space, located a location. It's right beside the Hughes Gas bar in Spruce Grove, and we meet there twice a week now, from 9 till 12, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's an open door for anyone who wishes to come in and see what's happening, and and to continue in their interest of an alternative to other challenges as an aging population. What would you see if you came to a shed? It's all about a shed with, fundamentally as commonly with a workshop. And so we have done that. We have a social room where certainly coffee and treats are there for everyone. Some people just come for the coming in and being part with other guys. We have a games room, and then this woodworking shop. And having set up a shed, we have received many donations of machines and materials, from table saws to dust collecting equipment, from individuals who, in their aging years, have downsized with their accommodation. They don't have a workshop space for their materials anymore, and they've given us table saws. We have 3 table saws and things like that. So it is having, build it, it will come. And people have given us lumber and et cetera, and that kind of thing. In terms of our projects, in terms of our primary goal or motto is shoulder to shoulder. Guys have a habit of not being very communicative about their health issues and their needs. And so it's not face-to-face, it's shoulder-to-shoulder in doing common activities, whether it's working on the workshop or some kind of other activities. The other thing is that the other motto is health by stealth. So it's not a health program. It's not there to beat the bushes about how you should live your life, but it's through sharing experiences and trials and tribulations amongst them. It's how people benefit from this. Some of the projects that we have gotten into have been, and they just come up as an idea, and we have, show you an example. We have partnered with the Ag Society to make a birdhouse that looks like a grain elevator. Those are a popular item I'll talk a minute about it on the financial things, but we will make things to sell as the farmer's market to generate some revenue to keep going. So we have a partnership with the Ag Society for the restoration of the grain elevator, and that's so we made 30 of these, and we've been selling them at the farmer's market. Another one that has come out in an environmental sort of theme is to build a bat house. And so we have partnered with the city of Spruce Grove and the Canadian Wildlife Conservation Society on the conservation and promotion and development of the bat population as a chemical-free initiative for mosquito control. And so this is a 4-chambered, sorry, I don't have a picture for your screen, but it's a 4-chambered bat nursery house, and we have made 15 of them that will be going in all the outfall sources or pits in the subdivisions in the city of Spruce Grove. And so it's just an illustration of we had an idea, somebody had the idea, and it was something that took to root. The other thing is we are providing some games for the block community programs for the summertime, and so there's things like that we can make, and we're providing that. We have continued to develop our experiences with the people who come through the door. It's anyone who wants to is available or can come in, and there's no membership. But in regards to that, we have developed some early initiation of an understanding of working with social services, because we are dealing with with some individuals. Well, all of us have our own unique situations, but there are individuals who are in difficulties, and we work with social services in supporting that, in them, not referring them, but to take them in when somebody refers them or suggests, why don't you try the men's shed as a place to go into. And so we are sort of learning as we go along as to what we are capable of doing and what we need support from the community. Regarding funding, we create I'll just read it, to create a barrier-free space. Participation in the men's shed is free of charge at this time. Support from benefactors, revenue generation projects, and community grants from municipalities such as Spruce Grove, New Horizons, and Help Age Canada have been received. So that's an overview of the men's shed activity. And if we have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Doug, for your presentation. Members of council, any questions? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much, Mr. Taylor, for coming in for your presentation this evening. I know I've had the pleasure of meeting with you before as this idea was kind of in its infancy, and it's incredible that you are where you are today. And that was not all that long ago that we had that conversation, and I know at that point you were looking for space. And so to be in a space and to be established and be as active as you are already, I think that's just a testament to how good the foundation was of those who had come together with that idea and looking to bring it to life. I did have a question for you just in regards to the reach. You talked a little bit about where this started and how it's come over, and I did notice that BC has a provincial association. So they have the British Columbia, or the Men's Shed Association of British Columbia, which it looks like kind of supports and provides additional resources and that for all the different men's sheds in there. It gives them a landing page and all that to help spread the word. Is that something that's a conversation going on in Alberta right now to launch something similar?
It is. The idea started in Alberta with an Edmonton, or what we call Capital Region men's sheds. And there are men's sheds in Cold Lake and Grand Prairie and Lac La Biche and stuff. And there's about 4 or 5 of them in Edmonton area, we being one of them. But it was kind of an Edmonton-centric thing. And now they have set up and registered as a provincial organization, so an Alberta Men's Shed Society. And that would be the parallel to what's happening in British Columbia. Because there is a national body that is trying to support what we're doing, they're going to help with Canada Revenue charitable designations of men's sheds, for example, on a national scale. And so there is a national, a provincial, and then you've got sort of the area type of ones, and they're just kind of spreading out. But as you say, the British Columbia, I've always been impressed with how many they got going, and that came. All these different developments came from a particular happenstance in that area. In the British Columbia, it was United Way is very supportive of them and gave them support from the word go on fundraising and things like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And again, congratulations on all the hard work that you've put in and being able to see it to fruition now and actually have the shed operational, I'm sure must be something you're incredibly proud of. So thank you very much for doing that in our region.
Thank you.
Mayor Choi.
This was heard a hand up before.
Councillor Hansard then.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask for clarification because it was a comment you made that may not have been picked up by those who are watching and the people who will watch this video in the weeks to come. Did you say that the gentlemen who attend don't have to have woodworking skills or anything, that if they just have a desire to be with others and maybe make the social connection, that's perfectly accepted, perfectly welcome, and they can sit and watch the rest of you work?
Exactly. Yes, you're right. It is all fundamentally. It's about loneliness and isolation and the socialization aspect. So that's fundamentally okay and supported. And it certainly, as it shakes out, we have about 40 people who are kind of interested in what's happening there. But there's about 15 plus who show up, you know, weekday and week out sort of thing. And some of them just, they don't want to talk to too many people or just very quietly just like to do some word working sort of thing. So they've been, I mean, this was a group, a team effort sort of thing, but it wasn't everyone. It was a spread out on spreading the load out for the work and stuff like that. So, yeah, excellent.
Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you. It's good to see you again. As mentioned by Councilor Laurie, we had the opportunity to meet earlier along with Councilor Meyer, and it was great to see and hear your vision for the community. I think you're absolutely right. Most men are shoulder to shoulder. We have a hard time looking face to face and talking about our emotions and what's happening and how we feel. And I'm not limping. It's not a limp, right? I don't feel bad here because it's not that. And I love the fact that you said that it's health by stealth. Yeah. It's an open opportunity where people come to visit, talk, maybe just have a coffee to get over some loneliness or just to connect. But you're building those relationships which in the long run are beneficial to them in terms of mental health and physical health as well. So definitely 100% support what the idea is, what the notion is when we first met. And I've noticed that you're still continuing to partner with Tricala. And I think that's an excellent opportunity to be, in terms of lifelong learning, in terms of what you're trying to promote with the shed. Everybody can learn a new hobby. And that's one of the biggest things is that when people transition or from retirement or from different jobs, if they don't have a hobby to bridge that, that's when the mental health and the physical health goes down because there's nothing to go to. And having the men's shed in our community allows that opportunity to, again, connect with other people and then also then learn new hobbies and maybe interests that might be able to support them in those journeys. So again, thank you. Being here is definitely a kind of awareness waking for us. Again, we're on YouTube, so everybody that watches us, and we'll be able to share that as part of our communications going out, and maybe more people go, hey, what is this men's shed? And you're right there to pick up those pieces and say, this is what we are, and these are the questions that we will answer for you and with you. And it's just no holds barred, no barriers, just come as you are.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you. And I think you had your Tricala. Go ahead.
I didn't want to forget this. This has been a tremendous partnership with Tricala, which is so situated here in Stony Plain, and the executive director is here, Barb Scully, and so I can't say enough about our partnerships with them, and we have worked with them to put on presentations and stuff on health topics like sleep management or pain management or hearing options and stuff like that. So there's an educational component on this lifelong learning that's part of this aging process of ours.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Taylor, for being here this evening. I've heard Men's Shed come up a couple of times just within the community, and we had NeighborLink in here recently, and oh yeah, you know, we referred that over to Men's Shed, and I'm going, okay, well, I've heard this Men's Shed a few times, and so to be able to hear what it is that you do and sort of the journey that you've been on is awesome. One of the things that you spoke to very early in your presentation this evening was the rates of suicide for men, kind of in that and around 60 years old, and work a lot with youth, and so that was a statistic that I wasn't familiar with, and so, you know, a little bit of a dive here, and you know, I'm surprised and certainly concerned about those numbers that you've referenced. You know, one of the other things NeighborLink talked about was their Keep in Touch program and how they've been finding this need for people to volunteer just to reach out to those who are isolated and alone and that sort of thing within our community. And I think what, you know, your group brings to the table is tremendous. And, you know, when you're building something that's grassroots like this from the bottom up, not only does it take vision, but, perseverance and kind of that stick-to-itness to be able to see it through and to hear that your membership has passed 40 and creeping up on 50 is absolutely amazing. And so just want to commend you and hopefully a team behind you that provides that ongoing support for men in our community. So thank you for being here and thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you for coming this evening. You spoke to a few things, which is loneliness, isolation, and health, and you spoke to most men over 60. One of the things that comes to my mind off the top of my head is, what is it that we could do to help promote that shed opportunity for the men in our community? Is there a website? Is there something along that lines that we can help to get the word out?
We do have a Facebook page, and we're represented in the Tricala calendar, and of offerings about the men's shed and things that are. There's just a recent program on executor training and like end of life management sort of topics of estate management and that, and so. Though that's part of our educational sort of component, and that distributing that information through support for Tricala is important, but we do have a fundamental background in mental health development and mental health wellness, and so we have worked with your staff here to be part of events. I got invited to a mental health for seniors first aid course, and that and I mixed and mingled with staff from here, from the region, and so that kind of relationship with the social services or FCSS or whatever the designation of it is that's where we look for practical sort of on the ground sort of relationships that help us tell the message, get the message out, so, just being invited to come here is an example of what you can take away for promoting the idea, not to be too mercenary about it, but it's just telling the story, what's available and that kind of thing. So that's how you can help us.
Thank you for that. We appreciate you coming this evening, and I look forward to hearing more about the men's shed within the communities, and look forward to seeing you out and about in the community. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the adoption of the last Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Laurie with the motion, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll move that the April 2nd, 2024 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be approved as presented.
Members of council, you had the opportunity to read and review the committee meeting minutes from April 2nd, 2024. Are there any errors or omissions or corrections? Having seen none myself, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Business items. We have 3 business items this evening. First is the Municipal Historic Resource Policy. Administration, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Council, fellow administration, and guests. The Municipal Historic Designation Policy was approved in 2008 and aims to foster the designation and conservation of historic resources within Stony Plain. The scope of the established roles and responsibilities, the scope included, the scope of the policy established roles and responsibilities for the town, community partners, and property owners. This policy allows the town to be responsive to any property owner wishing to protect their historic resource. The policy has seen limited utilization with only 1 property designated and no incentives paid to date. The policy was scheduled to be updated due to its age and to bring it in line with the town's current policy writing standards. Its review was also included as a recommendation in the 2021 Arts, Culture, and Heritage Action Plan in response to multiple directions and land use policies within the Municipal Development Plan. A draft policy was presented to Council in March 2023. At that time, the policy was not benchmarked against similar municipal policy, nor significantly altered from its original content. The policy was referred back to administration for further review and benchmarking and to answer questions of clarity. Tonight, I will be presenting a draft policy for information. In preparation for drafting the revised policy, administration conducted benchmarking to assess the presence and effectiveness of programs regionally and with similar sized communities in Alberta. Of the 16 communities researched, it was found that 7 had programs and that 3 of those included incentive programs. This research was undertaken to address questions of clarity that were posed by Council in March 2023. In-depth answers to those questions were provided in the agenda package this evening. Administration also undertook an in-depth analysis of incentive programs and their rationale for inclusion in designation policies. The draft policy being presented tonight has been aligned with the organization's current policy writing standards to enhance clarity and consistency. Amendments of note include the removal of the external organization responsibilities, which aims to simplify the policy structure and focus on the core objectives of designation and conservation. This ensures that roles and responsibilities are clearly defined and manageable. Though removed from the policy, it is noted that Red Brick Common is a key partner with the town on historical matters, and administration will maximize the partnership with the Red Brick Common by directing owners and/or applicants to work with them on their designation application, consult with them on review processes, and accessing information related to the inventory list when required. Secondly, the inclusion of a new incentive program is proposed. Instead of the previous tax-based incentive program, which was unpredictable, the draft proposes introducing a matching grant program. This program would offer up to $5,000 per year for up to 4 years from the date of designation to provide property owners with financial support for conservation efforts. Though the benchmarking shows incentive programs at only 3 of 7 municipalities with heritage programs, industry research shows that incentives, even those perceived as small, can improve the odds of property owners pursuing designation. Through research, it was found that financial incentives often reflect a show of support rather than a large share of restoration costs. The funding of this program would be navigated through the corporate planning process, and the budget amount proposed would be based on the number of applications received for the grants. This change would limit the risk associated with the unknowns of the tax-based incentive program. The draft policy will be brought back to Council with a recommendation at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Administration. Council, the floor is open for questions of clarity, understanding on the presentation. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to administration. I'm just curious for some clarity regarding the comments captured, on the recommended amendments, the removal of external organizations and responsibilities, and then your comments regarding it was noted the partnership with Red Brick. Can you expand on that?
The previous version of the policy included roles and responsibilities for an external organization, which in that case was the Multicultural Heritage Center, now known as Red Brick Common. As we were working through the rewriting of the policy, we were trying to tighten up the roles and responsibilities to town administration only, and so the external organizations' roles were removed. However, through conversations with Red Brick Common, they are aware that this policy exists. The inventory that they house will continue to be there, and we can access it whenever we need. And they will work with us and property owners on designation as required.
Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was very happy to see this come forward. I was able to sit on council in the year that this originally came back. This is all basically coming back to us out of an original body of work done by Dr. Margaret Knupp, who worked at the Multicultural Center during the formation of this original idea. Am I correct about that?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and all of council, I believe so, but I don't have the full history on that.
Okay, well, she still lives in the area, and you could certainly call on her. She was extremely proud of this work and had put a lot of work into it. I don't want to exaggerate the number because I don't remember, but I think there were around 100 properties that had some kind of historical significance for the town of Stony Plain that she had identified. But already now some of those properties have been demolished, the buildings. So is there a process by which the land or the property that the building sat on can still receive a plaque of some kind that would be anchored into the ground so it couldn't be stolen or removed? Has that been looked into?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and all of council, a recognition program is a recommendation in the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Master or Action Plan, but has not been created to date.
Okay, and I have a couple of other questions that are related to that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Go ahead.
Is there a difference still between being designated as a historical property in the town of Stony Plain versus a provincial historical significant property? And if so, would some of those differences have something to do with what kind of renovations are allowed to be performed on the building? The explanation for that is, to go to the higher level, I understood that people now, they can't just paint their building. They'd have to paint it in a color that was popular or the colors of the day. They couldn't change the decorative work on a building. I'm just curious if people are aware that there may be requirements for them, for their property, if they were to take advantage of this.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and rest of council. On page 30 of the agenda package in the clarity, answers to questions of clarity from the March 2023 meeting, it does speak to the difference between provincial designation and local designation. The primary difference is the significance of the property or the building. Local designations are more specific to local resources or local historic figures, whereas provincial designations are tied more to provincial figures. The second part of the question around people's knowledge, I can't speak to. However, it would be a part of the public communications of the program.
Okay, and then one last question. Partnering with the Red Brick Common on this, which was the original organization through Dr. Knupp's work that put all of this together in the original report, what I'm wondering is, what steps would be taken to preserve the work and the designation caretaking if something were to happen that perhaps the Red Brick Common ceased to operate?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and the rest of council. The inventory is housed in the archives of Red Brick Common, which is a primary function of that organization. I can't speak to whether or not, or how that would be preserved if that organization were to cease to exist. That would be examined during the time that it was dissolved. I would imagine that the town would be interested in getting that information, but I can't speak to that until such time as that may happen.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. Just a couple of questions that come to mind for me. The first would be, I mean, we have the archives at Red Brick Common, which is great, and we have this policy coming forward, which is great. But for example, when one of these identified properties is bought or sold, how would a new owner be informed, or how would they know whether that property would or would not be historical property within the town of Stony Plain?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Laurie and the rest of council. The administrative intention is to create a procedure around this program. That would be to include property designations on property roll information. In terms of the knowledge as to whether or not they're included on the inventory, that is strictly based on age. So if their property is older than 35 years old, odds are it's on the inventory if it was caught during an update year. Aside from that, there is some information in the inventory that speaks to why a property or a building may be historic, but it's limited, and it is primarily based on age. So a property owner could glean that their property may be on the inventory based on the age of it.
Okay, thank you. In light of that, if we have some significant properties that we're aware of, is there an opportunity for the town to identify these properties? And I know this program seems based more so on the maintenance or the renovation of the properties, but is there any way for us as the town to identify these properties and have them added to the register without the incentive program? How does that work, I guess? If we're, like, and I'll use an example, the old Sheriff Umbach house. You know, we had his family in town here last summer, we did the tour, we saw the house. Honestly, before that tour, I would have never have known. It's a very significant house. It certainly could use some updating to it if we wish to have that remain within the municipality. So how do we go about then recognizing that that property has a significant historical importance and relevance to the town of Stony Plain and is being identified as a property that we would, at minimum, prefer remains within the town?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Laurie and the rest of council, the policy is written to be responsive to property owners. We don't currently have a proactive program in place to seek designation of properties. That something like that could be included in a recognition program, which would not include designation, which means the property could still be demolished, but it would be more public knowledge that the house or the property is of import. But that is not the current intention of the policy. However, having said that, if council wished to make a proactive program or a proactive designation, that is within your purview.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much for that. And I mean, I think that's something very important, and I'm not at a point. Obviously, we're just in GMP for directing anything, but I think that is something that needs to be considered. We have many properties in this community that have a significant historic importance to this municipality and the history of this municipality, and I think it would be a wise decision for us to at least explore what that may look like of ensuring that those properties are identified and that they're well known, that those property owners also know about this policy coming in force and how they may be able to take advantage of it to ensure that that property stays in good repair and stays as a significant piece of our history in the community. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Loynes?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to administration. Trying to think of how to word this properly. You were talking about how the Red Brick Common will be kind of spearheading all the paperwork and getting things in line for this designation. I'm curious because at our last GMP, Melissa had indicated that she is the only actual employee of the Red Brick Common, and the majority of any other staff that could come is grant-based and summer student and things like that. How can we ensure that we have the manpower at Red Brick Common to even take this on?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Loynes and the rest of council. This is not considered new work for Red Brick Common. They do have 2 volunteer staff in the archives who undertake research on a regular basis already. We can't guarantee that they will continue to have those volunteers or staff in place. Just to clarify one point, it's not that they will be undertaking the paperwork, that's town administration's job. They will be undertaking the research. Does
Just
that
a follow-up to that then, Deputy Mayor? And again, so the volunteers are there currently for the research purposes. And again, there's a million what-ifs to this. But again, with Melissa sitting here a month ago telling us they have no people on hand, my fear is that the research will be put in a box and left there, and no further investigations would be happening, and it would fall back onto our town staff to either pick it up or we lose part of this historic to the town. Is there something in place that we make sure that that isn't the case, that either our staff gets weighted down or it doesn't get lost?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Loynes and all of council, we work quite closely and directly with the Red Brick Common staff and volunteers on a number of programs and services, and this is just one example of that. And we would work to ensure that we understand the capacity and the needs to support and undertake the work that they need to. The policy itself really speaks to the designation of a historic property or resource through bylaw provided by council. The work that goes into maintaining the inventory of significant properties within the town is actually kind of a separate and different component that feeds into this work in its entirety. But I would say that we continue to work with Red Brick Common very closely to understand the existing inventory of work that has been developed by Red Brick Common, as well as looking at future needs and capacity to maintain that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Choi?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple questions, and just in line with the same Red Brick Common question here. Looks like on page 30 and 31 of the agenda package, it says that the town will be directing owners and applicants to work with the Red Brick Common, to do their statement of significance, et cetera, consult, review the process. I was not here for the last GMP when Red Brick Common did come and present, but it sounded like they were turning over a lot of activities back to the town because they do not have the capacity to do that. So my question is this still a good partner to have if we're considering this, if the Red Brick Common is starting to turn things back to the town?
Deputy Mayor, through you to Mayor Choi and all of council. At this point in time, we continue to dialogue with Red Brick Common specifically about this inventory. We did preparatory work with them and communications with them in preparing for this policy update, and they have given us an indication of an understanding of the inventory, the status, and the work that has been prepared to provide the update to this policy. And we will continue to monitor the support that's required and their capacity to undertake the maintenance of that work and work with the town on this program.
Okay, thank you. And second question, Mr. Deputy Mayor, is in terms of the matching grant of $5,000 per year up to 4 years. So in terms of the incentive program, is there stipulations of what that dollars can be used for in terms of structural rebuild or just painting, or maybe going on a trip to get some significant heritage or significance of the building, of the, I guess, the settler that landed there? Where did they come from? So we're going to take a trip down to Washington, D.C., because that's where they originated from. Just trying to understand what is all included in the incentive program.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council, the incentive program will specifically be required to be utilized at the property. So whether that is painting, repair, et cetera, it is specifically for conservation of the building or property. And that will be further laid out in the administrative procedure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Third question, in terms of the recommendations and the conversation around the table, is in terms of a property that's been designated as historical significance within town Stony Plain, does that preclude that property from getting redevelopment in terms of keeping the facade as what it is, and then building behind that into a larger building or a more modern building? I asked that question in terms of a lot of the older communities in Canada. A lot of that redevelopment has happened, but municipalities have put on, I guess, a bylaw that the initial face of the building has to remain the same, but everything after that is allowed to be changed. So you still get the historical significance of the property and the lot itself, but everything behind it has changed, so that then it's up to times in terms of building codes, standards, and the use of in today's market versus 1935 or 1920.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council, that's not spoken to specifically, and it would be an administrative procedural piece. However, it would be dependent on what the statement of significance says is the significant piece of that property. So if that is an interior piece of that building, the answer would be no. If it is the external facade of that building, potentially the answer could be yes. And that would come to council in the bylaw recommendation from administration.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any further questions for clarity, understanding? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the presentation this evening. Wondering if in your conversations around the community, if we have any indication as to the expected uptake of the grant program that we're talking about this evening.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Anderson and the rest of council, there has been no community stakeholder engagement on this policy for this particular presentation. The incentive program would be based on designations that have occurred. So the way the timing of the program is scheduled, a designation would have to happen in 1 year, and the application for incentive would begin in the next year. So we would know during the corporate planning process what that budget amount may look like, so that it could be presented to council for as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. Just going through, I think I was on page 29, and I want to make sure of our agenda package here, just to make sure I understand this, but, and you alluded to this, so there would be a designation bylaw that would come through council, and then the following year, January 1st, potentially there would be an application for the grant program that the following fall would come forward in the corporate plan for potential approval. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Anderson and all of council. Yes. I may have to just look at that, just to be sure.
Sure, no, and I think we're on the same page, and I think where I want to go with that is, it's quite a formal process that looks like it's going to potentially extend even beyond a calendar year. And I think sometimes what happens when people have, good intentions of undertaking a project is that they can lose momentum a little bit if things take too long or if it's going to take a while for all of those pieces to fall in place, especially when there's a fiscal component to that they're going to put in some money and expect a grant there. I don't know the answer to this, and this is why we have experts in the room, but, is there a way that we can be a little bit more flexible in administering this program in the sense of building it in as a grant program or, being able to pull from a reserve somewhere so that administration at their purview would be able to kind of remove some of that red tape, receive that designation and sort of get that grant program underway to help engage our community stakeholders so they're not having to wait so long for the process to kind of get moving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor, maybe I'll just provide a bit of a context or a thought around that. And I think there was a question earlier about how much interest or was going on. I think part of the timing for the funding or reference to corporate plan is that we're not entirely sure. And there would be a difference if we were, theoretically be approving 8 of these in one particular year, and then 8 times 5 is an amount that's relatively significant. Whereas if we know one's coming, we see one, we've got one, and we understand they're probably going to be putting in a grant. Well, $5,000, yeah, there's some flexibility that can be built in there. But I think the way it's written kind of covers both. That'd be my perspective and just my context. The staff may have something else to add, but.
Councillor, Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just in terms of the conversation, I think more like a budget item that would happen the prior year. So if council decides to add kind of a funding formula, maybe $10,000, $20,000 into a specific funding item for historical properties, and then from there, then I believe if there does get any applications and council does approve it, then there's the funding available for there. It's not, I think what you're saying is, it is like if it's going to be 2 years before they actually get their money, it is going to be very, very hard and people lose interest quickly. So I think it'd be more of a conversation between council and at the corporate plan of do we actually add a budget line for this initiative? And if that is the case, then it is available for whenever some property or owner comes against that destination.
Okay, certainly appreciate the thoughts. I'm back to page 29, last couple lines there. There will be no funding in the corporate planning process if no applications have been received. And so I think I interpret that a little bit different, Mr. Mayor, than sort of your understanding there, that we would want to see the approval of the application before it comes to corporate planning. And depending on the timing of that, if it's just prior to corporate planning, it could be a quick process. But if the corporate plan's approved and then the application comes in shortly after, it could be a calendar year for that to come full circle. But I think what you've hit on there is a good point. Like, is it something where, council could set aside a certain amount for the upcoming year to provide more flexibility and shorter turnaround times for administration to carry forward the policy?
If we could get administration to possibly answer that question as how we get that in our corporate plan.
Deputy Mayor, I'd just like to offer consideration. The amount that we're referencing within the proposal is an amount that we could certainly adjust and be agile to within our own operating budgets within the year of a bylaw, and then adjust accordingly going forward through the corporate planning process. On the initial stages of proposing this, I think we're very comfortable with understanding the level of uptake that might occur, and that there will be a process for council to approve through bylaw any potentially designated properties. And we feel like administration could be responsive in terms of the timing within the fiscal year, and then leading into the corporate plan of the following year, that we're prepared to adjust accordingly to respond to that based on the amounts that we've proposed within the incentive program.
I saw some other figures.
Just a second here. So thank you, administration, for that. I think we're getting close to what I would call a bit of a debate where we're going to try and find the funding for some of this stuff. And I think all we're looking for is a bit of clarity on that, and we can move into the debate here in a few seconds. So, Councillor Anderson, if you'd like to.
No, yeah, I appreciate that, and I apologize if it's coming out as a debate. I think my only intent here is to make sure administration has the flexibility they need to administer the program in a timely manner, and based on the responses, I think it sounds like administration is comfortable with that, and that's my intent to the question, so.
Thank you. Councillor Hansard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So my concern is not about funding at all. This is one of the concerns that I had when I read this, and I believe it was a concern I had when we first considered this years ago. Is there any room for the town to approach the landowner, property owner, rather than us sitting here waiting on somebody to think that maybe they might have a historical property? I want to give you an example. One is Fourth House Inn on this, opposite the Rexall drugstore. The tall white and green house, and I'm not even sure anybody's still living in it. That building was originally the Nuremberg construction, and they shared the upper floors with Stony Plain School District before there ever was a Parkland School Division. And that building has historical significance for the two entities, but in particular, universal significance because it was Stony Plain School District offices. Upstairs in that building is the most beautiful built-in horizontal filing cabinet that probably belongs somewhere, maybe at Pioneer Museum. Those buildings, those four houses, by the way, I believe, are scheduled for demolition so that an apartment building can be built there. The concern that I have is when we sit, the current owner, I'm sure, does not know that that was a building of historic significance. The concern is if we don't have a mechanism for the town to be able to inform people this property is a historically significant property, and maybe even to inform them. That's the piece that I thought was missing years ago, and that is that we have no way to step out in front of this to hopefully be able to prevent buildings from being demolished, or if they are really almost in a derelict condition, which that one is, that there are still elements of the building, perhaps the windows, the glass in the windows, that file cabinet, which, by the way, goes all the way from the floor to the ceiling and is about 5 feet wide, has about 40 or 60 drawers in it. Things like that, we have no way of preserving if we don't have the ability to be the initiator of the contact. So is there any plan to put that in here so that we can at least inform people that they own a historically significant property?
Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Hansard and all of Council, the first step that we've identified is maintaining and creating the policy that we've presented for you this evening for information as a framework to really provide the space to designate properties. That's really the foundational piece, and where we go from there in terms of enhancing or adding programs and services in a more proactive manner would need to be looked at and explored from there. This really is providing the framework for the designation piece to ensure that we have a mechanism to recognize those properties that need to come forward, whether, and at this point in time, it's a juncture of the ownership to step forward and seek this out, and we can provide the means to consider that as part of a decision by council.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a question of clarity. We've referred a couple of times to the funding that's provided through this policy or that's available through the policy on application. And I keep hearing it referred to as coming from the corporate plan, and it sounds like it's being contemplated as operational funding. It's coming from the operational budget. I'm just wondering, number one, am I understanding that correctly? And number two, if it has been considered to look at a reserve-based funding model for this rather than an operational-based funding model?
Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Laurie and all of council, I think the source and the magnitude and the mechanisms for funding applications can take a variety of shapes based on the number of properties that become designated through this policy. At this point in time, we only have one property that's designated, and there are no incentives that are built into that bylaw. So creating, we certainly understand there's a variety of mechanisms that we can explore in order to create funding to ensure that there's the appropriate level in place based on the number of properties that are designated, and we would certainly monitor and adjust accordingly as that occurs and as property owners step forward to seek designation as well. So certainly a reserve is an option, as is in the initial stages operating budget and the corporate planning process as well. So.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up on that, I'd like to suggest that as this kind of flushes out and comes forward, that be something that's looked into significantly. I know we have the legacy reserve that was established, and the intention of the legacy reserve was with a balance that it would be able to start self-generating funds that would help support programs as they continued on. And this sounds like one of those great opportunities to do so. We know we have these properties in town. We know that at some point in time, we're likely going to receive applications on this. And I think it would be prudent to be proactive in being prepared for those to come forward by potentially having some monies already put away in reserve rather than reactive, because I would hate to think as to what would happen if, let's say 20 of these properties decided to come forward in 1 year because somebody took an initiative to really, spearhead the project. And next thing you know, we're left, maybe 5-6 years down the road, a council's left trying to make a decision as to which one to approve or which one not to approve. And I think that would be a very unfortunate circumstance to be placed in. If a reserve is established, if a policy is put in place as to the contribution on an annual basis to that reserve, if any other granting or funding becomes available, or if any request for funding above that reserve balance comes forward, I think that can be addressed at that time. But I'd really like to see something proactive. If we're going to have this policy in place, if we're going to offer an incentive program, I think a reserve makes the most sense, and being able to be proactive to that would be prudent of us.
Any further questions for clarity and understanding? Seeing no more questions, Councillor Anderson with the motion, please.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Just going back to the questions of clarity and understanding, in terms of next steps, the next steps is to bring a draft policy back to council. Can administration provide a date when that will be coming forward?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to the mayor and the rest of council. The date outlined in the RFD is Q3. There's no specific date chosen currently.
Okay. And then follow up to the presentation, and that's very informative, and I like the direction that we're heading. In terms of what was mentioned in the presentation, currently there's one designated property. It's not even a building, it's a property, as the Old Town site. If this policy comes back in Q3 and council does approve it, in terms of the matching incentives of $5,000 for 4 years, what can that designated property, the Old Town site, qualify for in terms of using that $5,000 matching?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to the mayor and the rest of council, the existing bylaw specifically states that there are to be no incentives paid to that property. If the property owner were to come forward to administration, administration could make a recommendation to council. It would be the purview of council to alter that bylaw to provide incentives if that was their wish.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So in terms of the current bylaw that is on that property to designate the Old Town site, there's a clause in that it says no incentives, period?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi, that is correct.
Okay. And then Deputy Mayor, in terms of when this policy comes forward, if council adopts a new policy, does it then, would typically repeal the old policy? So does that put the designation in limbo and they have to reapply for the new designation? Or are we going to grandfather this to, they have the same designation as the old, but we have all new requirements and legislation now?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council, the bylaw and the policy are separate from each other. So the changing of the policy does not affect the designation or the bylaw.
Okay, thank you for those questions of clarity.
Seeing none, Councillor Anderson with the motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll move that the Municipal Historic Resources Policy be accepted for information.
Any debate or discussion on the motion? Councillor Meyer.
So I would just maybe like to offer a counter comment to some of the discussion that has already occurred. What I saw presented in this was sort of a modest first step, and the discussion sort of seemed to have, I'm sure everyone's very excited about the idea of saving. We have lots of historical things in this community, so I can appreciate everybody's concern in that regard, but I would caution that we don't want to go beyond the first step. Let's see what this looks like in the modest version, and then see what kind of uptake we take or get, and before we imagine a much bigger program where we're soliciting potential registrants. So anyhow, I'm quite happy with it is presented as it is.
Thank you. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and appreciate Councillor Meyer's remarks. We'd counter that in just stating that this is an update to an existing policy. This isn't a new policy. This is something that we've had and that has been in place, and I think I know some of where I'm coming from on it is the ability to actually start moving forward on this type of thing. You know, we have had the policy, we've only had one property. I'd ask the question, why? And we have a lot of history, as you mentioned, and you know, so it would appear to me that maybe the steps that we have taken to date, and even the update of this policy, maybe it just hasn't quite been enough yet. And maybe there is more work to be done and more to be flushed out as to how do we really start getting these properties recognized within the municipality, and how do we start getting, you know, applications in, or how do we start getting these designated, and how do we make sure we preserve that history before that history disappears? Because that is the unfortunate thing with history, is once that history disappears, you don't get it back. And it's very hard to get it back. And so, you know, we've seen it year over year. As was mentioned, we have current properties that are sitting slated for potential demolition that may have, you know, some relevance or some historic value that the current owner may or may not be aware of. And so I think it is prudent for us to make sure that we're doing the due diligence to preserve our history wherever possible, and put whatever methods in place we can do so that that's not lost for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Laurie was much nicer about disagreeing with Councillor Meyer. I was going to simply say I'm not in agreement with that. The issue is we have had a policy, and I think the reason we've only had one property brought forward is because it was the original town site, and it's a family that is very interested in history of Stony Plain and very proud that they happen to be the owners of it. Other than that, there's been no mechanism put into place to actually allow the contact to come from the other side. If you just sit like ducks in the water waiting for somebody to notice or find out, or have a neighbor or someone at their church tell them you live in a historic property or a potentially historic property, we're never going to see the people come forward. I'm not really interested in seeing 100 of them come in 1 year. That would be $500,000 that we'd have to come up with to start compensating people, and that would carry on for years. I'm not interested in that, but I think we've got to take that original list that was identified, and then go to those that have been added, such as the Israel Umbach home, and because we found out a great detail about that when the family came, as Councillor Laurie mentioned earlier, and not let these things get out of our hands. The day that the 4 houses over here come down, I'm going to be standing in the Rexall parking lot. And I'm going to take pictures of it to commemorate the loss of that building. I hope that at least somebody would be willing to make a connection and let the people know there's elements of that house, not to stop the demolition, but to let them know that there's some pieces in there that would have importance to the town of Stony Plain and its history. The issue for me is 2008, this came forward, and there was work done on it for years before that to bring it to the place where it could begin to be recognized. Here we are in 2014, and in 4 years we will be 20 years down the road, and we're really not any further ahead. Thank goodness this has come back to us so that this council, with forward-thinking ideas and a reverence for the past, can do something that's got some teeth in it to begin to work on this. But please, don't misunderstand that we're going to get this response from the public by just waiting. We have to have a way to let them know that these properties were identified in 2005, 6, 7, whatever years they were, as potentially historically significant properties, and here's what the story is, and then maybe be able to get something going where people at least aren't interested in demolishing houses. Doesn't take rocket scientists to recognize that the land that many of these homes sit on is of importance, is valued by people. But the building that's sitting there would take far more work than it's worth for the average person to do any significant upgrades to maintain those buildings. A small bit of incentive would help, hopefully, to at least begin the process. But please, let's don't lose another 20 years to this. I very much appreciate that this came forward. I would like to see it come back soon, so that we can actually put a little bit of teeth in this and create a process by which we are able to contact those property owners.
Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question, because I'm kind of confused here. Did I miss out a email where the new updated policy is? Because it sounds like that's what we're debating, and I don't have that policy in front of me. So I'm at a loss here. Are we debating the updated policy, or are we debating the except for information was presented here?
Except for information.
Okay, then I reserve my comments when we get the policy updated to debate. Right now, I have no issues with accepting the information that's presented by administration. I look forward to having that conversation with members of council in Q3 of 2024.
Thank you, Mayor Choi, for that. I think what we've heard tonight, administration, is there's a lot of good things that council thinks about historic values, designations within our community, and there's lots of great ideas that come across the table for when we do see this policy that comes for debate. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. And we'll take a short 10-minute recess. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have the Destination Marketing Fund Report. Administration, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Council, fellow administration, and guests. During the 2024 to 2026 corporate plan meeting, Council requested a report regarding the action item in the 2021 Tourism Master Plan, which relates to destination marketing funds, or DMFs. The report presented this evening serves as a response to that request and aims to provide information on legislation and the provincial context, the relation between DMFs and destination marketing organizations, or DMOs, some local and regional context, and next steps. These are the definitions that are provided within the report, and I won't read through them in detail here, but they are included just to offer information and context for the presentation. The 2021 Tourism Master Plan serves as a strategic 10-year roadmap for the community's tourism development efforts. It outlines key objectives, strategies, and action items aimed at maximizing the economic and social benefits of tourism. Tourism presents a significant opportunity for the community, offering avenues for economic diversification and growth, job creation, and enhanced quality of life for residents. One of the primary goals of the Tourism Master Plan is to enhance the economic and social benefits derived from tourism activities. This includes maximizing visitor spending, promoting local businesses, and fostering community pride and engagement. Achieving these goals requires adequate capacity and resources, which underscores the need to explore alternative funding mechanisms to support tourism product development and marketing. Within the Tourism Master Plan, there is a recommendation to explore stakeholders' willingness to pursue the creation of a destination management fund, which, just for your knowledge, management and marketing are often interchanged in this context, as an additional funding source for tourism development. Unlike some other provinces, Alberta lacks legislation empowering municipalities to create mandatory DMFs. This absence of a legal framework presents both challenges and opportunities for implementing DMFs at the local level. The Government of Alberta imposes a 4% levy on all tourist class accommodation, which contributes to the province's general revenues. Travel Alberta's Tourism Investment Program, which is funded in part by this levy, provides grant funding to destination marketing organizations and tourism operators. In the past, this program primarily funded marketing efforts by recipients, but has changed significantly since the pandemic and is now focused on the promotion and creation of market-ready experiences that can be ticketed. As noted in the report, a destination marketing organization is responsible for promoting a location as an attractive destination. DMOs typically operate as nonprofit organizations or at arm's length from municipal government. These organizations are often funded in part by the municipality or regional partners that they serve. However, this funding is not always stable, requiring diversified revenue streams. Unlike the independent entity model, in Stony Plain, the municipality is serving as the destination marketing organization. Culture and Tourism manages the marketing and product development efforts, which are conducted through the Explore Stony Plain brand, collaboration with regional partners through the On the Edge YEG initiative allows us to collectively amplify our marketing efforts and reach a broader audience. It is industry standard that the funds accumulated through DMFs are utilized for destination marketing and product or experience development. Unlike mandatory taxes or levies, such as those for business improvement areas, DMFs are voluntary for both businesses and patrons. It is important to understand that this voluntary nature can affect the potential participation rates and revenue. The Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association and Tourism Industry Association of Canada have undertaken studies into DMF structures, governance, and operations across Alberta and Canada. The studies explored the various DMF models adopted by communities. There are several DMFs in Alberta, some of which are referenced in the report and on the screen here. These funds vary in type of management model that they follow and in the level of participation by business. And as you can see, amount of percentage and the business that are asked to collect the fee. The Tourism Master Plan provides a detailed analysis of the potential revenue generated through a DMF in Stony Plain. It includes calculations based on accommodation statistics from 2019 and assumes participation rates. It does not include the potential revenue from a DMF that extends beyond the accommodation sector, nor the regional possibilities. Administration worked with regional partners, including Parkland County, Spruce Grove, and Explore Edmonton, around 7 years ago to engage stakeholders regarding implementing a DMF in the region. The initiative struggled to garner support from local accommodation providers at that time. In the preparation of this report, administration discussed the possibility of exploring a regional DMF with representatives from Spruce Grove and Parkland County. Further work on the feasibility of a DMF would be considerable and require engagement with stakeholders and regional partners, which will be transacted through the remainder of 2024 and 2025. Additional capacity would be considered within the framework of the corporate planning process. Thank you.
Council, the floor is open for question of clarity and understanding on the presentation. Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just in the question, in terms of the presentation, how many municipalities in Alberta have a DMF?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council, the examples that are provided in the report are the examples that I was able to find information on. There may be additional DMFs that are not, that information is not publicly available on. Specific benchmarking in terms of contacting multiple municipalities is not undertaken.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a question in relation to page 55. It was the slide that speak to the DMF revenue analysis. The numbers that are quoted under the second bullet there, we heard some conversations about regional, we heard some conversations about Stony Plain specific. The numbers that are quoted on this page, is this just within the town limitations, or is this our regional number, or these are regional numbers?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Laurie and the rest of council, these numbers are specifically based on Stony Plain beds. And it is, the assumed occupancy rate of those beds is 55%, which assumes 50% participation from the hotels. These numbers are also from 2019, and so you have to take that into consideration that it's pre-pandemic.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then if I may, just one more question. You spoke to the next steps briefly on page 56, and I think I heard you say the balance of the work would continue over the remainder of 2024 and the balance of 2025. You mentioned something about corporate plan dependent, or there was something in there about the corporate plan. I guess the work that's listed on the next step here, is there anything listed here that would require something that we haven't seen in the corporate plan as of yet? Even though we haven't approved 2025, we obviously did see the plans for 2025, or do we currently have the capacity, and is this in the workload planning as the next steps are noted here?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Laurie and all of council. So the work that was indicated to be undertaken for the remainder of the year is part of the administrative capacity to work with stakeholders and regional partners to explore the possibility of moving forward with the business case and feasibility at a regional level. We really can't proceed any further until we have an indication of an understanding of what the scope and potential would look like, because it is a voluntary program, because there was an intent to seek out regional partnerships to look at this. So that initial conversation has occurred, but more work needs to be done to scope out that work. And that is part of the existing work plan and would be then taken into consideration as to what needs to occur for 2025 based on those conversations with stakeholders and regional partners.
And then one final for me. Yep. Thank you very much. So the last question I have, on page 54, which showed the various communities and percentages, it spoke to the various hotel brands. There were variable hotel brands. And I believe it was referenced either in the lead sheet or earlier on in the presentation as well, about certain hotel brands that voluntarily themselves charge a DMF and then contribute that back to the municipality. Do any of the hotel brands that we currently have in our municipality provide that?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Laurie and the rest of council, the short answer is no. None of the hotel brands that are in Stony Plain contribute to a DMF. There are opportunities for them to do so. The Edmonton Destination Marketing Hotels Association in Edmonton is open regionally, so if our hotels wish to participate in that, they could.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm glad to see this again, this project come back to council. The concern that I have is with everything being voluntary, what would be the incentive for people in the hospitality industry to want to put a little extra fee on their hotel rooms per night to contribute to this fund? How do you get people to just volunteer unless you put a DMF designated amount to be charged? It doesn't seem to me that that's going to be likely to happen under voluntary circumstances. So if I'm a hotel owner, how do you sell that to me?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and the rest of council, a program such as this is beneficial to hotels or other service providers in tourism destinations by virtue of increased revenue for their business. So with additional marketing funds in place, the theory is that you can bring additional visitors who may stay longer and spend more money. So that would be the incentive.
I guess that's it. If I might just further to that, Mr. Deputy Mayor, what tracking system would there be to be able to show the hotel owners that there is a benefit to them? If they collect money voluntarily and turn it over to this fund, do we have a mechanism that will show them that this paid off in some way?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Hansard and the rest of council, there's currently no program or administrative process around Destination Marketing Fund. If one were to be created, the business case would include mechanisms for ROI.
Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And my question is similar in regards to the comment about the voluntary nature of this. So would I be correct in understanding that you could potentially have two hotels in town, one collecting the DMF and another one not? So that's just the first question.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Meyer and the rest of council, that is correct.
Okay, and then just to follow up, because I also see it's voluntary for patrons. So in theory, two people staying at the same hotel, they check out, get their bill, one mentions, I don't want to pay this, and they don't have to pay it, and the other one doesn't know, and they pay it. So they would pay, same people at the same hotel paying two different rates based on the voluntary nature of this.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Meyer and the rest of council, that is correct. In the report, it it notes that organizations, businesses, hotels, et cetera, who are collecting a destination marketing fund should be upfront about that at the time of booking, particularly in the case of accommodation. So theoretically, no person should book a hotel room without understanding that a destination marketing fee will be part of their invoice. So they can, at the time of reservation, ask for that to be removed. But yes, that is a possibility.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I wasn't aware of the Edmonton Association, so I was actually just taking a quick look at it because I had identified that same point. They speak a little bit differently in regards to whether the guest can or cannot request for that to be removed. It is voluntary for a hotel to join a DMF and to charge it, but it says it's like any other part of your pricing structure and therefore is to be accepted by your guests as such. Not unlike a parking fee or Wi-Fi or environmental charge, it's up to each individual hotel as to what costs are charged to your guest. As long as that is identified during booking, you are not covertly charging your guest. However, if your hotel has chosen to reflect the DMF on your invoice and a guest disputes it, then like any other part of your pricing structure, it is the hotel that makes the choice as to making an adjustment or a refund. So I'd be curious, just maybe as this work progresses and just understanding that a little bit further to know whether it is a hotel's choice or whether they would be mandated under any type of regulation to not charge it then.
Administration?
My apologies, Deputy Mayor, is there a question?
No question. It was just a matter of kind of what we're seeing in our package versus what we're seeing on this organization differs. And just as this moves forward, just making sure we have clarity on it. There's no question at this time.
Mayor Choi.
Thank you. Just in terms of trying to get my mind around destination marketing fund, I understand that there's no provisions within the MGA to allow municipalities to do that, so it'd be voluntary. And then there's also a little slide that said this is how many, based on 2019 numbers of how many hotel rooms were rented out, et cetera. Based on that, at a 2% destination marketing fee, a total roughly $85,000. So in terms of that, we wanted to attract people to come to our community for, to stay, to play. So how do we address those people that are not here for tourism, but they're here because they have to come through for work? So are they part of the destination marketing? Is that the reason why they're here? And another thing is that with those dollars, if the town of Stony Plain is the DMO, then as a business owner, do I want to take somebody's money and give it to the town to promote the town?
There's a question in there.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council. The second part of the question I can't speak to because that's at the discretion of the person who's here. The first part of the question, there is no differentiation between a room night. The Government of Alberta classifies a tourist class room as any room that is rented for less than 28 days out of a month. So if a worker were here on a long-term stay and their room was booked for 28 days or longer, they would not necessarily have to pay the DMF, but that is the definition of a tourist class room.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So that's just kind of opens my understanding a little more because last year we had, a lot of wildfires that were happening. So people were coming to our community and they were staying for 1 or 2 nights. So that's considered destination marketing, tourism, because they had to come here. Just trying to wrap around what it actually means and how we're going to promote it.
Great questions. So as I read through this, I stay in a lot of hotels around the province for the work that I do. And I've seen that on things. I did not know that it was volunteer. So I've paid it at a number of places. But one of the questions that really come to mind for me when I was looking at the destination and marketing fees in Alberta is the 8 areas that you represent that you found were able to find something. And I'm wondering if you have So I'm referring to page 54 of 160. If you have statistics on how many in that area actually participate. You know, so in the Edmonton area of the 500 hotels or more that are there, how many actually participate in it?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to you and the rest of council. There are some statistics included in, I believe, the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association report that was linked to the agenda package item. I don't have those numbers in front of me, and we didn't do a deep dive into the participation rates in the 8 communities that are noted here, or the EDMH example. Just note that some of the EDMH example is slightly different because it's a membership-based organization, so those hotels specifically sign up to participate in that versus, and it is only those hotels that get marketed by that fund versus a regular destination marketing fund that benefits the entire community.
Understood. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Anderson.
At risk of debating, so please stop me if my question sounds that way. Just looking for some clarity on the process this evening. So if this report is accepted by council for information, I'm looking at page 47 of 160 in our agenda package, would administration then undertake the next steps that are listed there at the bottom of the page? Or is there opportunity there for discussion and debate among council to accept the report but not continue the work? Or is that if council does not accept the report, then that would sort of die on the table? So just looking for some clarity on what happens this evening if this is accepted or not.
Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Anderson, all of council, I think the intent really would be to do referencing page 47 and the steps that are outlined there. Likely, in all likelihood, steps 1 and 2 would occur with administration over the period of the next number of months, and understand the scope and level of partnership and willingness to proceed. And then, you know, that would be an opportunity for perhaps a juncture of consideration at that point. I mean, obviously, we can't move forward without a level of commitment and partnership to a degree from the stakeholders for sure, but certainly the scale and scope and level of the DMF would change significantly if regional partnership was involved. So I would say those first 2 steps are in the works and would be explored and undertaken, and then there would be a juncture for the consideration and an update to council at that point.
Okay, thank you. And that's if it's accepted as information this evening. If council does not accept the report, which I'm not sure I've seen, but it just sort of dies on the table and that work will not continue, is that how the process would play out?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Anderson, all of council. So yes, the intent would be if the report is accepted for information, we would proceed with those. Certainly, you know, we're looking for that request for acceptance of information at this point in time, and we would await council's decision on that.
Any further questions? Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just in question in terms of the DMF. So if something, we proceed with this and we go forward, is a possibility to have the town be involved to collect the DMF in our rental properties? I look at Heritage Park Pavilion. We have a lot of destination marketing there. We have a lot of events coming there because we promote it. Is it feasible to say that if we're going to have a voluntary fund that we're asking business owners to do that, should we not also participate and join them?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Mayor Choi and the rest of council, traditional DMFs are charged on accommodation. The only example that I have found outside of that is Jasper, which also asks their service businesses, so restaurants and retail locations, to charge the DMF as well on their revenue. I have not found an example where the municipality is involved, such as you are suggesting, but traditionally it is on accommodation.
Thank you for that clarity from administration. Deputy Mayor, definitely I'd like to provide some comment that if we do continue to go ahead with this and we accept this, if there is any DMF coming, that we start collecting some funds that go to promote tourism and destination marketing in our community. Definitely make sure that the town of Stoney Plain is at the table with all our businesses, so it may not be a DMF on top of the town of Stoney Plain rentals, but it might be just a budget item that the town of Stoney Plain matches whatever is collected so that we can actually have skin in the game to support our businesses.
Thank you, Mayor Choi. Any further questions? Seeing no more questions, Mayor Choi, with the motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I make a motion that Town Council accepts the Destination Marketing Fund report to be accepted for information.
Thank you. With that, any debate or discussion on the motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As the mover, I'll take opening comments. Definitely appreciate this coming back from staff. This is part of our corporate plan, a strategic plan from the members of council to drive commerce within the community. I like the fact that this is laid out of how we're going to follow with the next steps. It is not that we're doing it right away. We're doing it in terms of consultation with our regional partners and also the business community before anything comes back to council. So I encourage members of council to accept information so that our staff can continue the process and then bring some recommendation back to council, either it's for or against having a DMF in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Chair, for the opening. Any further discussion? I would also support the fact that this gives us a good opportunity to look at something without costing a lot. It encourages us to move forward on a destination and marketing fund opportunity that may or may not exist within the area, and I understand that we've tried this once before, and maybe it'll be the second try that we get at it. But I think anytime we can open the door for conversation regarding stuff like this is important to Stoney Plain. We call ourselves a destination, and to be able to promote that, that takes a little bit of funds from time to time. So I do like the fact that if we move forward with this, that there's an opportunity for us to match funds within that, so that it encourages the participants within our community to participate in it. Any further questions? Councillor Anderson.
I don't so much have questions, but I do have lots of thoughts. You know, when I look at the list of municipalities that are involved with the Destination Marketing Fund at this point, they're all national parks, very large cities, or very near proximity to national parks. You know, whether that's Lethbridge down by Waterton, Banff, Jasper, and so on. Just looking at a couple of the communities that have these destination marketing funds, certainly it looks like they're at arm's length to a degree from municipal oversight. In Edmonton, it's the Edmonton Destination Marketing Hotels Limited Organization with the Alberta Hotels and Lodging Association acting as the trustee in terms of the disbursement of those funds. And so one of my first thoughts is, if there is a market here in our region, is this something that our hotels or our business community could pursue independently without sort of that direction and facilitation from municipal council? The second piece for me is when we tax on tax on tax. And, you know, as was shared this evening, tourism classrooms already, so anything under 28 days, have a 4% levy from the province of Alberta. And so this would be in addition to that. And so certainly we want people to come and spend their money here. But, you know, those dollars, you know, that may be spent on a hotel chain could also be spent at a local business, going for dinner or whatever it is, walking down Main Street and those sorts of things. And so, you know, I certainly appreciate the work that's here. I appreciate that it came forward through administration as a request of council. My struggle is I'm not sure that I would like to see the work continue in terms of the cost benefit that I see, not that destination market funding in terms of advertising our region or our community as a destination. But looking at the list, there's certainly significant work for our staff, and we already ask a lot of our staff. And so I guess I'm questioning whether the cost benefit is there. I certainly appreciate the input and the advocacy from our mayor and deputy mayor this evening, but I'm struggling with this one in terms of encouraging administration to continue the work for those reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Any further? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I can appreciate the council colleagues' comments on it. I do want to speak in support of us accepting this for information to allow the work to continue for a couple of very specific reasons. One of those, as we heard, is, you know, the tax on tax on tax. Well, the reality of the matter is municipalities have to find versatile ways to generate revenue. Because if we are going to market ourselves, if we are going to market our community, trying to attract people to the community, right now, that comes straight out of every resident's pocket through our municipal taxation. And sometimes I do question that as to whether is that fair that the residents of the municipality are on that, or should the businesses who are highly benefiting from that, like the hotel industry and providing the accommodations, should they have some skin in the game? And should they be putting some dollars into that rather than relying that solely on the municipal tax base? The other thing is just the acceleration of the ability. As we read in the report, currently right now we put $50,000 towards it. Based on an occupancy rate of 55% and based on a participation rate of 50%, which are some very conservative numbers, we would be able to raise an additional approximately $85,000, and that's on a 2% destination marketing fund. Based on some quick research of the rooms that we have in this region, we hover around an average of $100 a night per room. So we're talking a $2 a night on a stay. You know, I think that's a great investment for us to be looking at as an opportunity to raise our profile and to be able to, again, help assist these businesses as well, because this is going to hopefully generate to a point where their occupancy rate is going to be above 55%. When you look at the Edmonton Association, that's specifically what it talks about, is the utilization of those funds to help them increase their revenues, to help them increase the number of stays, to help them increase the number of booked nights. So I think it's beneficial for ourselves in looking at ways to promote our community. It's beneficial in the fact that we would encourage the businesses who would benefit most from that increase to contribute and to participate as a partner with it without us having to draw that revenue from our tax base from the residents. And again, it's raising the profile and raising the people who are coming to Stony Plain and them knowing about us, knowing what we do here, the great festivals we have, the great opportunities we have for us to be a tourist destination. And I'll just close it by saying, you know, I don't think we have to be a national park or a large city in order to look at this. I think we have a great cultural scene. I think we've shown through the likes of our summer sessions and the programs that we've had growing over the last number of years that, you know, we are a destination. And, you know, whether it's somebody coming from 45 minutes down the road in the city of Edmonton, or somebody coming from 3 hours away from Calgary, or somebody coming from another province or another country, I think we have a lot to offer here for people. So I appreciate this coming forward. I think there is a lot of work to be done and a lot more understanding to come from it, and I really would encourage council to support this so that that can continue.
Mayor Choi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I apologize. I had this written down, but I forgot to ask it during questions of clear understanding. Is it okay if I do? Okay. In terms of the original presentation, there was, on page 55, there was a scenario. If there was a 2% DMF for the town of Stony Plain, based on the 2019 numbers, they would generate $84,000, roughly $85,000. Also in the presentation, it said that the province has a 4% tourism levy, which would equate to $169,000, or $169,000, so $170,000 that was collected within the town of Stony Plain in 2019. Does the administration have any data of how much of those dollars came back to the town of Stony Plain in terms of a destination marketing organization, or to support functions or events within our community that supports tourism?
Deputy Mayor, through to Mayor Choi and all of council. At this point in time, we don't have that, the details of that information. It wasn't included within the summary of research that was provided.
Is that something you could find out and get back to council with?
Deputy Mayor, to yourself and to Mayor Choi and all of council, we can provide information with regards to grants and funding that we've received through Travel Alberta in the last number of years, and we can certainly share that for information. Just to clarify, that's the information Mayor Choi was seeking?
Yes, that's what he's seeking. Thank you. Any further questions or debate? Mayor Choi, would you open? Do you want to close?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to close. And I think this is a step forward in terms of checking what we have in our community. It is the motion to accept for information is laid out clearly the next steps. And those members of council that may be hesitant of what this may bring, definitely I share some of those same concerns. But in the next steps, you look at the number 5 is presentation and recommendation to council. So at that point in time, as council will do the deliberations and debate, we can also either decide to go ahead or not go ahead in terms of a DMF. So I think it is prudent for us to go forward and approve the motion to accept for information so that our staff can continue on the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Choi. And with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. The final business item this evening is a strategic and corporate plan, Quarter 1, 2024 report. Administration, please proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and members of council this evening. Provided for your review and consideration is a report on the strategic plan and corporate plan progress of key initiatives for the first quarter of 2024. With the approved corporate plan in quarter 4 of 2023 and the strategic plan updated and approved in Q1 of 2024, administration is both advancing the priorities, projects, and services, as well as monitoring their outcomes and impacts. The details of the progress report are included in the agenda package beginning on page 144. Those are my comments at this point in time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions from council with regards to the report.
Thank you, administration. Council, the floor is open for questions of clarity and understanding on the presentation. Seeing no questions, Councillor Loynes with the motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That the Strategic and Corporate Plan Q1 2024 report be accepted for information.
Any debate or discussion on the motion? Wow, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Council discussion. Let's start with Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A couple things for me today. I just wanted to note that tomorrow is actually National Teacher Appreciation Day. It is the first Tuesday of a full week in May, and it is a reminder to show the appreciation for teachers everywhere. So thank you, Councillor Anderson, for all that you do when it comes to our youth in our schools. I also wanted to mention that on May 8th, it is the World Ovarian Cancer Day, as we increase the global awareness for this disease. And it is a reminder to unite with those living with ovarian cancer as well as survivors and their families. On Saturday, May 11th, we have the Emergency Preparedness Day in front of Town Hall. Last year, unfortunately, the event was canceled, but it looks to be that we will still be able to have it this year, which is nice. And on Sunday is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all those moms out there. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to highlight that this week from May 6th to 12th is Mental Health Week. Their campaign this year, I think, is incredibly important. It's a call to be kind because compassion connects us all. So they're using the hashtag Compassion Connects. I think it's incredibly important. We've seen a lot of divisiveness and division out in the world today, lots of anger and lots of people who are choosing to rather be kind and understanding, or rather to be maybe a bit aggressive or hostile, or there's many adjectives you can choose for that. So I think it's just a great reminder that we don't have to necessarily agree with each other, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be mean to each other or angry with each other. There's all kinds of ways to express our differences, and we can still be kind while doing so. That's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Councillor Meyer.
I would be remiss without saying thankful for my mother. Thank you for reminding me. But otherwise, that's all I got this week. Oh, and my wife, of course, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Hansard.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Hansard. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Very quickly, as has become practice, want to extend some gratitude, this time, for the first time, to someone outside of our own community, but that's the NHL schedule maker. And that is Saturday, I have the privilege to represent council at CFB Edmonton at the Yellow Ribbon Gala. Monday, we are back in Chambers, and I thought that's when the games would be, but they bumped them till Sunday, Tuesday. So we'll be able to catch both games and still fulfill our responsibilities here in Chambers with council to the town of Stony Plain. So gratitude to the schedule maker this evening.
Thank you. I'll go ahead of Mayor Choi because he'll need to have the last words this evening, so I'll give him the last words. So this evening, I have nothing. And there is no closed session this evening. So Mayor Choi, you can have last words and you can have your chair back. Thank you for the evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and good job of herding us cats. It was always difficult when you have elected officials that are passionate about their community. So in terms of council discussion, just wanted to share a little gratitude in terms of all the organizations and people that were involved in our Walk to End Violence on Sunday. Like members of council from all 3 municipalities participated, and same for their staff as well. Again, it's just to bring awareness that there is still violence in our own homes and communities. And the more that we bring up to the forefront and raise some awareness, the easier it is for us to address and to support each other as a community so that we can kind of get over the hurdle where we see less and less of violence towards our own family members. And second gratitude is to our town staff. This weekend we had the annual treasure hunt, which was well received by our residents and people that do come through in terms of maybe a tourism marketing fee. Lots of tourism people coming through there, town of Stony Plain. But thank you to our public works staff that opened for large item drop-off. So large item drop-off is an opportunity for residents of Stony Plain to drop off large items that they can't get hauled away during the normal waste cycle run. So definitely appreciate our staff for taking care of that. And as mentioned by Councilor Anderson, May 8th, Go Oilers Go. It is game 1 of round 2. And I was surprised that we waited a whole week to watch the Oilers play again. But I guess they say good things comes to those that wait. So we waited a full week and hopefully we get a win in round 2. So with that, there's nothing else. We'll come to number 9 of our agenda, and that comes to adjournment. So with that, great work, members of council. Thank you for your feedback and conversations. Definitely, through what we've heard and through the presentations, there's a lot of passion in our community, and lots of our residents are well represented by the people that sit around this table. Thank you, and we'll have a good evening. We are adjourned.